शुभं करोति कल्याणं आरोग्यं सुखसम्पदं मम बुद्धि प्रकाशाय दीपज्योति नमोस्तुते।
माँ भारती को प्रणाम करता हूँ। आप सभी को राम राम। अंडरस्टैंडिंग बंगाल पॉलिटिक्स इस टॉपिक के साथ आज हम यूथ अवेकनिंग मिशन की 50th वर्कशॉप करने जा रहे हैं। इसके लिए सभी व्यूअर्स, हमारी यूथ अवेकनिंग मिशन की टीम और उन सभी एक्सपर्ट्स का तहे दिल से शुक्रिया करते हैं हम, जिन्होंने पल पल हर कदम पे हमारा साथ दिया। सो टुडे वी आर हैविंग अ वेरी यंग, वेरी डायनेमिक Sailesh Singhal with us. He is the founder of Youth for India Foundation. He is an inspiration to many youth activists across the globe. We are really glad to have you here, Sailesh. Over to you.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Garvit, for your introduction, for a beautiful introduction and the words that you have said. It is really humbling to understand and to hear about oneself once again from you. At the outset of the discussion and the dialogue today that we are going to have, especially revolving around the politics of West Bengal, I would like to first of all thank the entire team of Youth Awakening Mission being led by Dr. Pawan Sinha Guruji, who is an inspiration to a lot of young people, including myself from across the world and around the country, and is on a mission to awaken young people like you and I. And as I understand rightly and have been informed, the kind of work that is happening on ground and off ground as well, this sets us on a mission to understand that how youth of India, the young assets of today, can be prosperous and bear fruits in the future. And this journey of awakening that is happening by none other than Dr. Pawan Sinha himself stands out as an epitome for and as an inspiration for a lot of young people across. And I think it is very important, especially after this entire lockdown that we see and the COVID that we have been through. It became very crucial and important to use digital platforms, which time and again, as the head of and the custodian of this democratic country and the prime minister had been focusing on the digital India. This COVID realized how important digital platforms were. And with these platforms, discussions and dialogues like these became as a fruit to connect, to hear, and to share our views across at a larger dimension altogether. And I'm so glad to be participating in this discussion today, where eminent people like definitely Dr. Pawan Sinha himself have been there, and there have been discussions and dialogues on a range of topics, from policies or the protest to the politics to the international relationships and many more. And I'm so glad that, while I was also listening to one of the Indo-China relationships that this entire forum, the Youth Awakening Mission organized, I learned a lot about it. And being again in this platform myself, it makes me more humbling to share my thoughts and experience altogether. So today, if I understand rightly, the point of our discussion would be revolving much more around understanding Bengal politics. And we can divide them into various parts and sections to understand it more vividly and rightly. And as I see Bengal through my eyes of my learnings, this undivided Bengal, if you go and look back, where parts of Assam, Tripura, Bangladesh, and the current West Bengal that we know of had been one constituted Bengal, and it was known as the Bengal. And to your understanding, Bengal, the cities of Bengal dates back to the Vedic period as well. And mesmerizingly, the trade used to happen from this state of West Bengal, or the Bengal that we know then, with Persia, the Mediterraneans, and the Arabia as well. And surprisingly, this state that we could think of had contributed and had the 12% of GDP in the world's GDP, The contribution of the GDP from this state of Bengal was 12% of the world, and being known for, as we all know, of being famous for literature, art, music, and architecture, though have been the prominent. But one more thing that we can't really forget and is already prominent even now is again the Miski Dhoi or the Rasgulla or the Malda's Aam. Things like these made Bengal or the Muslim cotton have been very prominent in strengthening its GDP. And if we try to connect that history with now in the present, we see that a lot of a lot of things. Every district, to say, in the current state of West Bengal has different and unique processes in all, unique and different things altogether. It could be pate work or the bags which get exported to Australia in the region of Kuch Bihar, or you can talk about the tea gardens in Darjeeling or the Jalpaiguri, or the mesmerizing, serene, beautiful nature in the region of North Bengal, or the Malda's Aam. And I was also surprised to also share this with you that the state of Bengal, we have the बैंगन जिनको हम जानते हैं, बैंगन इतने बड़े लौकी लौकी के साइज में बैंगन यहाँ मिलते हैं. तो ये पूरा जो बंगाल है, इसके भूमि में ही, रग रग में ही इनोवेशन और इसके थिंग्स में एक नए प्रवाह की तरह पूरे वर्ल्ड जीडीपी को कंट्रीब्यूट करने की क्षमता रही है, जो कि 12% था. But again, when we have to relook back a little more on the historical aspects, we see that especially between the years of 1204 and about 1350s, in between 1360s, Bengal was part of the Delhi Sultanate. Yes, back then, while we were captured and we were part of the Delhi Sultanate, though the Bengal as a state became independent somewhere approximately in 1350s, 1355, in between. So, and it formed its own sultanate, the Bengal Sultanate then. And it was right then also that the relationship of Bengal started with the Ming dynasty in China. But again, after the decline of this sultanate as well, the Mughals had captured, and it was then the part of the Mughal Empire. And it was right then, while it was accounted for the GDP that I was talking to you about earlier, had come out as a 12% of the world's GDP. And in the Mughal Empire, or the province that I'm talking about, it was one of the wealthiest provinces for Mughals, and that was Bengal. Definitely, a lot of things that we understand rightly, and if the facts and figures stated in a lot of journals reports rightly, 50% of the GDP, 50% of the Mughal Empire was from this state, the Bengal province, to say. And it was famous for a lot of things, though. But then something that I can recall right at the moment is textile and the shipbuilding as well. Because Bengal as a state, if you see right there, is also supported by ports, and it is a state where we can find everything, including the hills, the mountains, the terrain, the nature. A state where everything and anything can be seen either for connectivity, either for leisure or for economic development, and to say for leisure as well, because it also talk about the culture and the history of the art. And it was again after the Battle of Plassey that happened in 1757 that the things started crumbling down, and then we all know how East India Company came up, and then cutting the long story short, we all know that how the Great Famine happened and everything that happened with the state of Bengal, and then during partition, how Bengal got divided into different parts, including dividing it into a form of West Bengal and the East Bengal that we now know of Bangladesh. So everything that we see, and this can be stated for the last 100, 200 years, but what is very crucial to understand that the Stone Age that we can think of depicts the tools that have been found in this region of Bengal dates back to inhabitants for about 25,000 years. Then again, in the Mahabharatas and the Puranas, it has been mentioned that the Vanga is one of the adopted son of King Vali, who founded the Vanga kingdom, which could be known as the Bengal. And there have been a lot of other speculations as well about how West Bengal has got its name from a lot of different sources. But this could also be one of the places that we can relook at when we have to look back at the history. Then definitely it was part of the Gotham, the Mauryan Empire and the Cholas dynasty, and a lot of these that can be relooked and can be known about the rich historical culture that this Bengal has been blessed with. And absolutely, not forgetting that we now know Bengal of that the Shakti, there are more than out of 52 Shakti Pitas across the world, 14 Shakti Pitas are in this region of West Bengal. And then if we combine the undivided Bengal that we used to know then, that is the West Bengal now, that is 14, in Tripura 1, Assam 1, that goes to 16, and in Bangladesh 6, that is 22. So out of 52 Shakti Pitas, 22 Shakti Pitas have been founded in this region of Bengal. And while we know this state as a state of worshipping women and motherhood, also the state of rich and deep cultural heritages, we get back to remember what has been written in our Puranas as well. Yatra naryaste pujyante ramante tatra devta, yatrastu na pujyante sarvastra phale kriya, which means where women are honored, divinity blossoms there. And where every women are dishonored, all action, no matter how noble it is, remains unfruitful. And this land, I believe, was successful, was contributing to the 12% of the world's GDP because of the worship, because of the deep love and deep respect that one could have for women. And even for the matter of fact, for today, the worship for women and motherhood is well known and recognized for. Be it for Durga Puja, be through it Kali Puja, or regular pujas on motherhood that happens through Saraswati Puja and many more. And while we talk about this and connecting past to the present, a lot of unwanted and hurtful incidents, sentimentally hurting incidents do happen by leaders like that we know of, the current chief minister, of not allowing the people to practice or to pray women either through Durga Pujas or Kali Pujas, not allowing to immerse God's ideals, which is a source of sentiment for people like me and for all the 9 crore Bengalis here. And while we see this to happen, we realize that there is a decline of the state that has to happen. And it is because of, and being a woman herself, such strong denial of the very essence of the state, when gets lost, becomes a lot of problem to how we relook into our future. And while there could be a lot of facts and figures to say, and while I have some of them with me right here, and while we have to understand politically, culturally, socially, economically of Bengal, and to delve ourselves into the politics of Bengal in itself, it is also essential to understand that the current state, the West Bengal, was one, now that we know, is just 1/3 of the undivided province of the Bengal that I've already shared with you earlier. And it shares international borders, especially in the regions of North Bengal region, that is from Malda to Kuch Bihar. We share international borders with Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Nepal. Three international borders directly, and then China, of course, but then that's quite little far away from here. But then we can consider ourselves sharing these four international borders to say, of course, that we all know of through the census data that from the 2011, that we are a population of about 9 crore and plus, approximately between, I would say, about in 2021 around 11 crores. But yet something very surprisingly and a very good thing that we could look here is 49% of that happens to be female, and then 51% happens to be male. So a good ratio of women and females could be found here with 950. If we look at the ratio to say, it is 950 to 1000 males, 950 females to 1000 males in this entire region, which is not bad to say. And the sex ratio is also good comparatively for the 2001 to 2011. However, one interesting fact, if we have to see, is of the fact is the literacy rate that has increased drastically in the state, and the understanding of how important education is in our cultural system, and that went from 59% to approximately 71% for the females, and for males as well it increased. Not a drastic rise from 59 to 71, but from 70s to some approximately near 80s of the literacy rate for males, and then females that I've shared already. Though the population density is quite higher here, with approximately 1050 or 1100 square kilometer, and it is a state which is known for its highest density population. It was, of course, been followed 7 years, been slave for more than 250 years, and so 200 years of the British Empire, and earlier of the Mohammedan rule. And it was during then that the cultural ethos of Bengal have been broken down. And though there have been a lot of incidences, and we have read it in a lot of places, that if we have to break India, we have to break its educational, cultural aspects. And I think while we talk about and I think it was right there in breaking Bengal was about breaking its spiritual essence, its cultural essence, and its essence of education. Because a state that was known majorly for its art, culture, rich heritage, music, literature, everything that you can think of, a state which had been capital for the undivided India that we can think of, the extended neighborhoods of India, of the present India of then, back then, as with from Afghanistan, here in Sri Lanka, to here Bhutan, Bangladesh, back down to the slopes as well, the Akhand Bharat that we envision, and the Akhand Bharat that we can think of, or the extended neighborhoods of India at the moment. It was a point of center for everyone controlling right there. And I think when we relook at this breaking of the roots, or cutting down of the roots of this Bengal, it also came to see that how, when at the current stage for the last 70 years as well, the politics of West Bengal was epicentered in the region of Kolkata and its surrounding areas though. And while we look at that, we realize that one very important aspect that created more challenges in the entire state, and also mushrooming development in certain regions and avoiding or neglecting the other regions at a whole, became some challenges for the entire state to grow and develop together. What very recently, and it has been said time and again, what Bengal used to think today, India thinks tomorrow. And that has been once again echoed once again by the head of this democratic institution, by the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, telling that what Bengal used to think today, India used to think tomorrow. And rightly adding a slight more line to it, what India used to think today, India is to think tomorrow, the world used to do it day after tomorrow. And I think that was one of the reasons that we used to contribute the 12% of the world's GDP, not forgetting that this mushrooming and the epicentric politics around Kolkata in this state led to a lot of challenges, especially a cold divide, not a very prominent divide, but a cold divide between the northern regions, starting from Malda to Kuch Bihar, and the southern region of West Bengal. Again, though, Bengal, Calcutta, which was transformed by the East India Company because of a lot of other facility that it could be found there. But one, as you and I would have expected, that after post-independence, the entire regions should have developed. But surprisingly, and because of the politics of one's selfish politics, the only region that got developed were Kolkata and surrounding. And that, I believe, would have also led to a dramatic divide between the northern region and the southern region because of the lack of availability of policies or for the development in the northern region. Then I understand that after Netaji left Congress and eventually the country as well, and though there's a big fuss and where the people of India have been put into the dark about Netaji as a whole, as a leader born from this land of West Bengal and who have been kept aloof for so long. And I think sometimes it becomes very important when we need to have leaders like the Prime Minister that we have now, Narendra Modi, celebrating the Prakram Divas on the 125 years of the Netaji, and again disclosing the undisclosed and the classified files regarding Netaji for the world and especially for the Indians to know and feel proud about and understand how we have been left in dark even post-independence. So, after Netaji, as I was saying, after Netaji left Congress and then the country, they led to a huge political vacuum in this not only in the state but in the country as well, to say. And very unfortunate it was for the state that during this political wilderness, one name that I can recall, Fazlul Haq, formed a coalition government with the Muslim League and some other minority parties as well. And this path of walking of coalition with the minorities and the Muslim League started to create a lot of political vacuum and the initiation of appeasement politics that started to happen. Then, though very shrewdly, some of the very Congress leaders back then in the past tried to divide these regions that I was talking to you about in the southern and the northern region by creating two plans, the Congress plan and the Congress scheme, for the depriving and betraying the total apathy of their fellow Bengali Hindus in the entire West Bengal. And while we see this, and I will get back to how there has been a regular change of political parties in Bengal, how it got from Congress to CPIM, and then from CPIM to TMC, and then how we could project the TMC's fall has started because of politics that Congress started then, and then the TMC, and then the CPIM and the TMC now. But getting back to what I was talking to about, the mushrooming or the epicentric politics of Kolkata, it also was the reason that though there were a lot of resources, and coming from the region of North Bengal myself, from this land of Siliguri, surrounded by 4 international borders in itself, the chicken neck that we know of, the red alert zone that is always at, the resources were not lacking, to say. neither were they, but then what was lacking was the political will and the social will to develop this region as a whole. And uh, and while unfortunate it is, and we will get back to that, about how um, no leaders, not only in political system but any of these, comes from this region of North Bengal, or even to the high level bureaucracy. So the grassroots understanding of this region for the past 70 years has always been lacking, which also became one of the reasons for Bengal to be declining, of not using all the available resources to the optimum utilization of it, to say. And as we move ahead to the beauty of West Bengal politics, and get back to, as we all of us would be concentrated towards, the student communities and the youth organizations. And Bengal, when we think of, is widely known for its politics in being led by young people and the young activists from all these college groups as well, to say student communities and the youth organizations in West Bengal have been participating in politics since 1920s, the time when Mahatma Gandhi had given this clarion call to join the non-cooperation movement. And since then, every political parties have tried to enlist the support of these communities of young people, of students, for strengthening and staying in political movements, giving students the political potential. And then, though it was for the freedom struggle for the 27 years that we can think of, the 3 decades, but right after then, these groups, or the student youth groups, and the organizations have always been utilized by the political parties in power in, in their self-vented interest, putting the vision and the aspirations of young people with a grave. And I think while parties at hand did that, the aspirations, the real aspirations of young people, uh, were murdered, to say, and this led to a huge unemployment since the independence till today, where young people are always used as a political tool for the parties in running at hand. And this culture that was back there during the CPM region as well, and is now in the TMC region as well, is the para politics, or creating small clubs in every region, and providing them funds to come there, play games, either carom or chess or anything that they like of. And then this young people, talented young people of all sorts, would be then utilized, exploited during elections for their vote and politics, either through all the means that is possible, to say. And though, and this is largely to understand that how political scenario in the state have been for a long time now. But while we see Congress, and when we'll have to analyze political growth and the decline of politics, in the region of West Bengal, it becomes very essential to look at how the evolution of political parties have happened in West Bengal. Congress, contested elections uninterruptedly, and in the fourth General Assembly in 1967, and then the leftist propagandas swayed until 1967, and then since 1967 it was swayed by the leftist propagandas, and also about the corruption within the party itself, the Congress party and the government. And one of the major reasons, and I will get back to after we have analyzed the rise and the fall of the CPM as well, onto what is the crux of Bengal political parties' decline in this region, to say. And then the communists succeeded in building the fortresses wherever there were concentrations of refugees. though absence, and this has been, as I already shared, that there has been an absence of constructive employment generating programs by Congress then, CPM again, led by flawful laws, displaced people, making educated people directing towards the political, selfish, vested interest. And this has been the crux of the left wing parties to say. And why will we relook at how these political parties, and we also know that about the panchayat corruption and everything that we in the last 2018 elections, and how this government, the ruling government, has also put on the panchayat elections and a vast corruption that have happened as well. It is not that it has been something new to say. The municipalities and the panchayats in the districts since 1960s were always reduced down to the morbid condition, especially by the Congress regime and then the CPIM and then the TMC, realizing that this is the the epicenter or the source of, or the fountain of power in the political hierarchy for this state to say. And it has been happening since time in the past. And while politics in West Bengal, we all know of, is exhibits a culture of protest. However, this culture of protest and revolution had been very wrongly utilized by people in the left government, the extremist politics or the left extremist politics towards down from industrial revolutions down to unemployment to the Naxalites as well, creating a lot of different challenges. And this culture of protest then led to something that we know of, the emergence and continuance of numerous parties and groups, which these parties and groups became the gundas and created violence in the entire state because of the culture of protest that was wrongly fired, inflamed by the people in the left government, specifically since 1967. And now, unfortunately, the state that is a land of literature, art, culture, education, a state where womanhood is worshipped, is now a state where we should have ranked as a state number one in the field of education, in the field of development, in the field of leading the country as we know of from the front by thinking today what India would think tomorrow. We are a state at this moment, sadly, a state where number of cases of the violent cases, where West Bengal ranks the third. It is a state where number of acid attacks is, we stand first in the entire country. West Bengal stands first in the number of cases of attempt to rape. It is a state where number of cases of against women ranks third in the entire country, and a state which is again first for the number of cases of failure to find the missing women. Now, when we look at these, it leads us to pain that how people at power have been misleading it rather, in a direction that has long corrupted and made this Sonar Bangla, the beautiful, the Bengal that is known of its gold, Sonar Bangla, Sonar, the gold as we know of in the Bangla and the West Bengal. Sonar Bangla reduced down to the shackles chained by this horrific and the violent mindset and the political leadership, the wrong leadership of this of the past governments. And while there is the culture of protest again, but we will have to honestly relook at, and we will have to understand that also that this divide, and though the number of this regions of the northern and the southern regions, once again the epicentric politics of West Bengal, especially around, have always been from the chief minister that we have had from the Calcutta, Hooghly, and the Midnapur. But yet, though we had an exception of Sri Prafulla Ghosh to be the chief minister of West Bengal, but then again he was, he was imposed on West Bengal by Delhi and was again moved out as a chief minister in 6 months. And brought back to Delhi, and then the entire political culture, the entire political career has been taking a decline. So political groups have always been, and the political leadership or the chief ministers of the state have always been revolving around the southern region of West Bengal, leaving a very marginal influence of North Bengal region in the West Bengal politics. To say, and this northern region constitutes 35% of the state population as well, including, though there is nothing to talk about on how a lot of ministers as well have been from the southern region, and especially during the as well, either in the left government or the Congress or the TMC to say. But then again, that has been a reality which is even more pathetic. So, if we look at how, and while I talked about how, and we will get into a lot of political parties that are also there, but then before getting into it, this decline of CPM and then the regime of 34 years of the left, first the Congress for 4 general elections, and then till 1967, and then absolutely with 34 years of state leadership by CPIM, and then we look at the 10th year of TMC. There has been something in common, particularly if you remember while I mentioned about the coalition that has happened from of the Congress with the the Fazlul Haq, who formed a coalition with the minorities and the Muslim League. And it was during the last phase of the 1960s, of when they come, maybe between 1962 and 67, when this appeasement of groups and classes started to happen. Then, even when we look at the CPM regime of 34 years, it was especially during this phase of between 2000, between 2004 to 2011, when the current chief minister Mamata Banerjee took the oath as the chief minister in 2011. It was right before, 7-8 years before, that the CPM as a whole had been moving into this politics of appeasement, leaving out some sections of the population as a whole from its developmental process, and absolutely the corrupt regime that it has had for over the last 3 decades. And now we will have to relook at the current scenario of the current government led by the TMC leader, Mamata Banerjee, or the Pishi that we can know of. She has again been leading it from the front of the politics of appeasement, while she forgets that this land of Bengal, or this land of West Bengal, rejects the politics of appeasement at large, by large, with all its forces. It was the Congress first, the CPM then, and now the TMC. And I think a land of cultural heritage, the land of rich spiritual source of values, somehow rejects the appeasement politics and concentrates on the larger developmental politics to say. And it is only the leaders who talk about the larger developmental politics to say would succeed in this region. We cannot forget that how the current prime minister have always been focusing on the developmental of politics. I mean, it is one of those states that have been rejected, especially by the marginalized groups who are right there in the villages, who are from hand to mouth. And while any emergency falls on them or about health, though the entire state has poor and health facilities, lacks the essential and the primary healthcare facilities as well. These people are bound to challenges when such emergencies fall. And when the Prime Minister talks about the development of politics, something known as the Ayushman Bharat had been rejected from the state, depriving every marginalized person of 5 lakh rupees. Not only that, every farmer, I mean, this land, the land of Bengal, the land of West Bengal, ये कृषि सेंट्रिक जमीन है, अर्थात एग्रीकल्चर फोकस जमीन भी रही है और है भी. हर कृषि को प्रधानमंत्री कृषि सम्मान योजना के तहत सालाना 12,000 रुपए से वंचित करना, मुझे लगता है ये भी एक बहुत बड़ी खुद में डेवलपमेंटल पॉलिटिक्स से हटके अपीजमेंट पॉलिटिक्स की तरफ जाने का, ये क्लास सेंट्रिक पॉलिटिक्स की तरफ जाने की रहती है. And while we talk about developmental politics, it is not that one particular class or section of the groups would be benefited, but everyone would be benefited at large, irrespective of class, creed, religion, sex. I don't think of anyone that would fall under any of these when we talk about the politics of development. And schemes like Ujjwala Yojana, relief during the COVID, or the very recent, the launch of the refineries as well in the state, or when we look at whether construction of roads are happening at 30 kilometers every day compared to 3 kilometers every day in the past. I think this politics of development is exactly what the people in this region want. And this is where exactly the leadership of the Prime Minister, or the BJP as a government being led by the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been focusing on. And I think the instances of such changes and this instances of appeasement has always led to the decline of people. And any political group which thinks of everyone and thinks about it, Loka Samaste, of everyone in this region would be successful in the state to say. And it is indeed a matter of pride, a pride where a land that has, where legendaries like Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna Paramhansa, Satyajit Ray, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Mata Matangi Hazra, Rabindranath Tagore, and so many more have been born here. A land that is an amalgamation of art, revolution, culture, strategies, leadership in literature, music, and a land that has now been reduced to morbid situations because of the poor policies and the lack of political leadership at large. And when we go back once again to the past, and I will once again come back to the developmental politics to say, and how it will, how we craft the future in this state, the superior political skill of this, the left government and the great organizational strength that the CPM had, it led to its existence in the state. But then, since then, there have been a lot of tributaries of the left regime, which we can think of. It is either the Forward Bloc, RSP, the Revolutionary Socialist Party, or the Socialist Unity Party, which came away from the RSP, though. Then the Revolutionary Communist Party, Bolshevik Party of India, but then again, it was reduced down. Its existence was completely wiped off. The Krishak Mazdoor Party, or the Gorkha League, the Lok Sevak Sangh, and many more. All this, though, united with the left time and again, continuing the CPIE and then the CPIM and all this coming together and forming the party and being in the power for 34 years. It was right in 1953, which was the massacring of Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee a prominent Hindu or the nationalist leader, that an effective voice of the nationalism of the government of the or the politics of development started its or sowed its seed in this state. Though a lot of things, lot of movements created either led to a lot of other challenges as well. On and the region that I come from, Siliguri, from here, Naxalbari, the hub of Naxalite movement in the post 1967 was a region, and it started off. It did a lot of challenges though, but then again, now it has been carved down to. And there have been some dark clouds in the state's political horizon, no doubt. The crimes that I've already talked about being first, the number of cases in the accident attack, a number of missing women in West Bengal again stands first in this region. And this has been some dark clouds for the state for a long time because of the poor political will, because of the self-interested for being in the power and the kursi ki lalach और घमंड है ना, वो नशा पावर का, उस कारण से भी हमारे स्टेट को ड्रूल डाउन कर दिया. And it was only because of this gundas, because of this people who have been supported, who have been given shelter, who have been sheltered by the politicians. Panchayats become an important level in the local power structure, as I have already talked about and shared with. And politicians left no time in employing them these gundas for the election purposes, through local dance, through generous fundings, through these small clubs and padas that I had shared with you. And while I talked about the Congress downfall and the appeasement of politics, and it was also in the CPIM when that this seed of appeasement of politics took because of the massacre in Marich Jampi near the in Bengal between January 1979 and May, where the forceful eviction of the refugees have been who fled from the East Pakistan that we now know of Bangladesh by the Chief Minister by the Chief Minister then. And this Bengal, which was divided in the West Bengal and the East Bengal, and the people and these refugees who came, who were Hindu, and being only one country that is a Hindu, accepted country, other countries, Christian dominated, Muslim dominated, a country for the Hindus, but Hindu brothers and sisters who came from Bangladesh to West Bengal to India back then as refugees were not given space. And now, when we see that the Honorable Home Minister of India passed down the CAA and NRC and giving citizenship to such refugees from regions in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, and the extended neighborhoods. And then I get shocked. Why do politicians revolt? While you massacred 4,000 people, and there is a government who is providing them a citizenship, who are rather your brothers and sisters as well, revolt for their own, again, political interested, vested interests. And I think it becomes essential to question what kind of politicians do we really want. If politicians are ruling what people have to do, then I think people, as you and I, as responsible citizens, have to take up and understand that why are they doing it, and relook at what mistakes that has happened in the past by such parties as well. And one of them happens to be this massacre in Marijapi. So I think somehow in this region of Assam and West Bengal, CA and NRC becomes a very important and crucial aspect in providing citizenship to our own brothers and sisters who are not given space in this extended neighborhoods and who have been living here in refugees for a long time, not availing to the resources who were entitled to be used to, or to get through it. That was one of those one of those aspects where the appeasement of politics started by the left regime as well, and then it continued even during the Nandigram movement, though it was more in the lines of politics of appeasement. But again, the Indonesian group, that was the Salim group, uh, and they wanted to impress upon this group, being run by the mafias then, and being run by one particular group of class of people. um, the left government, with more than 4,000, more than 4,000 army personnel, was sent to Nandigram in evacuating the land of 42 square kilometers to create the special economic zones, which would be then run by this Indonesian group of Salim. Though to create the group of this, and this group of Indonesia would have to create a chemical hub under this SEZ. Though, but again, it was revolted, and it was right there where Nandigram also became a region of political, uh, political epicenter in the politics of West Bengal. And now that we know of the leader of Subendu Adhikari, who comes and hails from this region of Nandigram. And while this land, and when we look at how the contribution of GDP, the 12% of GDP in this region to the world, back then undivided, unfortunately there have been a lot of these scams as well, being supported, being sheltered by the existing government, either the Shardas financial scam or the Rose Valley scam, and many more, or not supporting, or during the COVID that we know of, and sheltering once again a class and group of people, or not sending enough samples for National Institute of Cholera and Tick diseases, because this state has also have a huge challenge of safe and clean drinking water. I think this appeasement of politics has created a long fear for these people here. And while I talk about development of politics, the development of politics is how the existing current government is ruling and working upon, either by the through Pradhan Mantri Jan Aushadhi Yojanas and the Kendras, or the Atal Tinkering Labs, or by electrifying every household under Saubhagya, or maybe displacing or dispatching soil health cards, Atal Pension Yojana, or the Suraksha Bima Yojana. And I think we can keep going on how this is happening, or the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, through which a lot of Bengalis, a lot of people here have benefited. But again, this concentration of cut money politics as well, which I have missed out, of demanding cut money in every work that they do. If you want a certificate, cut money. If you want a ration certificate, cut money. If you want a voter card, cut money. And this cut money politics has also somehow ruined the entire developmental politics scenario altogether. And either through the startups that have been created, but again, as a state that has been deprived of the central government schemes, it becomes very important and effective that we would require, as the Prime Minister has been time and again stating, the double engine ki sarkar, that the center and the state should be run by the state government, for this state to re-look back as the Sonar Bangla that we know of. And I think that mission and vision of Sonar Bangla is very essential. As Dr. Anirban Ganguly, the director of Dr. Shyam Prasad Mukherjee Research Foundation, has been stating this for a long time now, that it is with the people's participation that we can reconstitute the Sonar Bangla that we once were, which had been told by Sri Rabindranath Tagore as well. And while we will have to envision the Sonar Bangla, we will have to create a roadmap not only for the next 2 years or 3 years, but for the next 25 years. And as India would celebrate its independence from the British regime in the year 75 years of its British regime in the 2022, which has been conceptuated as a new India, it also would be on West Bengal, where West Bengal would celebrate its 75th year of formation as well. And we will have to create a roadmap not only for a day or a year or so or a decade, but for the next 25 years by the year 2047, when India would celebrate its 100th year of independence. And that is exactly, and I think while we see an Atmanirbhar Bharat as well, an Atmanirbhar Bengal and, and a Sonar Bangla, both of these are not just the change of policies, not just a change of economic development, but is also a change of entire process of mindset, leaping us into the future, leaping us into the thoughts of development, leaping us with the morals of cultural ethos, strengthening our strong spiritual values that we can know. And this is exactly what even Dr. Animal Ganguly re-echoes again and again while we envision towards the Lokho Sonar. And I think it becomes very important for everyone around us to come together in reconstituting or leading the Sonar Bangla from the front. Because, and as we see West Bengal as a center of connecting the Eastern world with the Western India and the other parts as well, it becomes important to have a leadership which talks about development, a state which is surrounded by international borders to have a strong international leadership. And I think that can only happen when we have a double engine ki sarkar here. And while the same mistakes have happened in the past, which led to the downfall of the political parties of the Congress and the CPM, I think the same mistakes which are being done by the current government by the TMC would lead to the downfall of this party. And with this, it would be the reawakening of West Bengal. It would be the dawn of West Bengal that we all know of what Bengal used to think today, India thinks tomorrow. And what the world will do it day after tomorrow. With this, I am so glad to have had shared some of my experiences and some of the facts and figures that I could present it to you from a lot of different sources, definitely from the census, from the governmental websites, that I have had collected for better understanding of West Bengal, of its demographies, of its history, of how policies have developed, and how we can delve into the future of this Sonar Bangla that we all have a vision towards. With this, I would like to once again sincerely express my humblest of gratitude to Dr. Pawan Sinha Guruji for inviting me over here and for giving a young person like me a chance to express my understanding of Bengal, coming from the region of Bengal myself, from Siliguri, and giving me a chance to express and to share thoughts on West Bengal political scenario of the past, in the present, and how we are going to delve into the future. With this one, and I would, end my thoughts with what Matangi Hazra had said, and it re-echoes right in our hearts even today. And it says like this: Boyosh hoye jay, shorir purano hoye jay, মাথার বাল সাদা হয়ে যায়, মুখ বদলে যায়, সুন্দরতা শেষ হয়ে যায়, যায় না শুধু এই রাষ্ট্রপ্রেম কোনোদিনও পুরানো হয় না, রাষ্ট্রপ্রেম শেষ হয় না, এই আমাদের রাষ্ট্র যে অমর আছে. Which means we can become old, our body can become old, our hair can become white, our faces can change because of old age, our charm and beauty can be reduced down because of old age. But what will not go is this land that we know of, Rashtra, the Bharat. This love for the nation will never become old. It will relive in itself like the pollination, like the wind, it will fly. And this prem, this love will never end because our land, this nation is immortal. With this, thank you so much for being here with me. আপনাকে সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ and নমস্কার.